Hello everyone and welcome to Zwia Reviews. My name is Zwei and I like to review movies here on Geekade. It's been a while since I posted and I'm really sorry about that. Life got in the way and don't worry, I was still watching movies during those times. I just haven't made any videos and I'll catch up on that. I've only missed like one. Okay, maybe more than one, like maybe two. Okay, yeah. So I've missed a couple videos and I'll be catching up on that soon. But more importantly, today we got Doctor Strange. Now for those of you that don't know, comic books are kind of my thing, and Doctor Strange is a character that I know very little about. It is very much a weak point in my love of Marvel Comics specifically. I have several issues with Doctor Strange in it. I've read about him in encyclopedias and stuff. Just never been a character I really cared about. I'm not really big on the whole magic thing. Usually when you got magic, the rules aren't really super defined and you kind of can pull off a win out of anywhere. And it's just boring storytelling for me. It's a lot of Deus Ex Machina stuff in my eyes. But it's a Marvel movie and it's a character that I care about. So I was very happy to go into this movie. I was very excited to it because Marvel has not made a bad movie yet, despite the properties that they keep trying to do and shouldn't work, but totally do. And Doctor Strange is one of those. Doctor Strange is a character that you need to understand. In the 60s and 70s, when he was big, he was a character that was pretty much big because drug culture was the way it was at the time. I read this in books. I can vouch for this. There was a lot of drug use used in the creation of a lot of his comics, and you can see that in the visuals, you can see that in the stories. It was in a culture where things were a little more crazy. It was more popular at those times because people would get high and look at the crazy artwork and be like, whoa, what is this? Then in the 80s or so, there's a little more of a war on drugs kind of stuff. And Doctor Strange really wasn't able to keep up with a more sobered audience. Or at least this is my understanding and from what I've read on it. That becomes very clear when you watch the movie. The most important thing about this movie is the visuals. The story we'll get into in a minute, the characters we'll get into in a minute. This movie is entirely about visuals, and I just want to preempt everything with this. It's a Marvel movie. It is a fantastic movie. It is your usual superhero origin movie, but the thing that sets it apart is its visuals, and the visuals very much are reminiscent of those more druggy-filled days. And there are multiple sections in this movie where it is just like, what? You have stuff going backwards in motion while people are going forwards. You have this whole like Doctor Strange going through multiple universes. There's this mirror dimension where they can manipulate how the city looks, and each of these different planes of existence that they go to is just more and more crazy than the last. And that is the strongest suit for this movie. Let's talk about the movie. The movie stars good old benevolent cucumber as Doctor Strange, and then the names just get crazier and crazier as it goes. So we have, I wrote this down because these names are terrible. We have Chiwetel Ejiofor as Mordo, Doctor Strange's best friend and classmate who eventually has a whole Magneto thing with him and they become rivals and evil. But don't worry about that in this movie. They're really good buddies in this movie. Then you got Benedict Wong, because this is a movie with more than one Benedict apparently. How does that happen? Playing Wong. So his name was just all sorts of unoriginal this whole time around. Wong is of course Doctor Strange's personal assistant kind of guy in his sanctum sanctorium place. We got Mads Mikkelsen as Caecilius, an evil Doctor Strange person. We got Rachel McAdams, that's a normal name, and she's in the movie for like 5 minutes, and she's his love interest in the real world. And then you got the Ancient One, who is this Asian influenced master of sorcery that teaches Doctor Strange, played by Tilda Swinton, who's white. Shit, I'm gonna have to talk about that later. That's a thing. Anyway, the movie follows around Buttercup Cabbage Patch as he starts off as a super good neurosurgeon and is just top of his field, really cocky, and then he gets in a car accident, messes up his hands, and he needs his hands, and then he goes and decides, well, modern medicine isn't going to work, so I'm going to go to Asia or whatever. I'm going to go to the other side of the world to find alternative methods, as white people do. And then he goes and he discovers, Tilda Swinton and all of them, and they teach him, hey, there's other shit you can be doing. You could be learning other shit. You could be doing magic. You don't need your hands. And he's like, I don't need this. I don't believe in this shit. I'm all about science. And then he gets pushed out of his body, and then he's like, oh shit, that's cool. I do believe in this now. And then it's just a bunch of learning montages of him just learning different things. He's just an asshole about it all times, and then he keeps learning way too much because he starts robbing books, and he's like, oh, I really want to learn all this. And then he gets really good at it. You find out that there's this evil Doctor Strange guy, Calicius. It's a great name. I don't even know if that's in the comics. It probably is. Who's trying to access the Dark Dimension, which is an awesome place, and I'll talk about that later. Dark Dimension I kind of know a little bit about. But that he's trying to access it to gain power, and then there's this whole thing where he thinks the Ancient One might be evil, but might not be, and he doesn't trust her, but then at the end he does. And then Calicius goes and starts blowing stuff up. And of course, Doctor Strange, the newbie, who apparently they've only been teaching, you see 20 people being taught at all times, and there's 3 locations, and there are people being taught in all these locations. But when shit goes down, everyone disappears except for Doctor Strange, Mordo, and Wong, and they're left to save the day. And Doctor Strange, good old Doctor Strange, goes and does some, being creative with his shit, and saves the day at the end. Spoiler alert. Yeah, I mean, it's a Marvel movie. It's very much one of those type of movies where it's oh, look, normal guy gets in shitty situation, has to make the most of it, finds this great inspiration for a new power, and then eventually doesn't want to be a superhero, but becomes a superhero in the end because the world needs him, and he's able to be really good at it because he's special. And that's the story of Doctor Strange. I mean, like I said before, it's all about the visuals, and the characters are all great. The characters, every single one of them, except for Caecilius, is all very interesting and very personality driven, and they all are very strong on screen. Except for Caecilius, whose entire thing is, hey, there's this guy, Dormammu, who he wants to go into a dark dimension and find Dormammu, and then he can live forever. Dormammu. Now, Dormammu is awesome in the comics, and Dormammu is awesome. I mean, if you never heard of him, he's in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and he was in the Spider-Man series and stuff. He's just this entity with a giant flaming head flames. And he's awesome, and in this movie he does appear, and it's probably the part I was freaking out the most with. And just another example of how crazy the visuals are, because you never get to see, you see his head and you see the flames, but it's all changing colors, and it's all stripes going down, and you can tell he's an outer worldly being. And I really enjoyed that they brought him in, and another surprising thing was all the different ultra dimensions and multiverse theory stuff that they brought into this movie, because this is stuff that you really haven't been able to really grasp onto. This is some advanced Marvel Comics stuff that they're talking about, that okay, yeah, Thor has, you got Asgard, you got Midgard, you got all these different realms, fine. And Ant-Man has the microverse, fine. And Guardians of the Galaxy's got space, fine. But Doctor Strange is opening it up to whole other realities, and really getting into some of the crazier stuff that even your average Marvel Comics reader could read comics for years and never even touch on, because this is some really advanced shit in the comic world. And I love that they were able to touch on that. And Dormammu is a great example of that. Dormammu is such a powerful, amazing being, level up there with Sidorak and some really crazy demon-y stuff. And it's amazing that they delve into that. And this is in the same reality where fucking Spider-Man's swinging around, Iron Man's doing his stuff. And it's you got the Captain America movies where it's just those grounded spy thrillers, and then you get this, which is a totally different movie, but they're all connected, and I love that. I mean, there's so much cool stuff, but when you look at the plot, it all just blends together, and it's something super special, and I mean, it's a great movie. I'm gonna own it one day, but it's it's average Marvel at this point. Like it's nothing we haven't seen. It's a movie that's weird because if it came out in the beginning of the whole Marvel thing, most people wouldn't understand half of what's going on. But now that it's coming out now, a lot of the stuff we've already seen before. So it's like there was no good time to make this movie, but Doctor Strange is such an important character. I mean, we have the Infinity War coming up, and if you ever get to read the Infinity Gauntlet, Doctor Strange is such an important character. He's the one that gathers all of the heroes to go and fight Thanos. Like, he is so important, and it's so integral to everything Marvel's doing that Doctor Strange gets put in this and gets in this existence. But it's not a strong character that can't really pull his own movie, and what they're able to do with it is amazing, and it's very funny, very entertaining, visually a beautiful movie, and this movie isn't even about the magic most of the time. Like, it's really just a character piece of Doctor Strange being like, hey, Doctor Strange, grow the fuck up and do what you need to do. Like, that's the movie's arc. Like, all the other stuff is background noise, but a lot of it focuses on his character, which is brilliant and what they should do. But it's just like, I can't really pinpoint there's so many good things and so many bad things. I mean, more good. Go see it. It's awesome, especially in theaters. Like this is a movie you have to see in theaters, but there's so much to say. I especially love all of the crazy stuff that they added in that you wouldn't expect. I swore I saw the Staff of One from Runaways at one point. They don't touch on it quick, but it's like there's a point where they're all these mages and shit are just grabbing weapons and you see it. And I'm like, that's the Staff of One! I recognize it! If you haven't read Runaways, fucking go read it. It's one of the best books ever. The first volume. Everything else. Runaways, so good. And then the other one, I was freaking out in my seat that Mordo at one point fights Doctor Strange and he has the Staff of the Living Tribunal. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, alright, that would go over most people's head, but the Living Tribunal, just a mention of that in a mainstream movie is something I've never thought I'd hear before, because the Living Tribunal is like one of the most powerful entities in the entire Marvel universe. And I'm like, they just mentioned the Living Tribunal. That's amazing. That's crazy. What? Like, no one will understand why that's awesome. But they did it, and it's cool, and watch that movie and look out for it, and look up the Living Tribunal, because it's the coolest thing. It's just this cool body with like 3 heads, and it's so cool. A little spoiler, Doctor Strange uses the Eye of Agamotto, which is really something that he uses its control time. Again, I am not an expert on Doctor Strange. I don't know what the Eye of Agamotto does. But in this, it uses it to control time, and all the way at the end they mention that it's an Infinity Stone or an Infinity Gem. If only Marvel could keep the name the same in the movie and the comics. You find out it's a Time Stone, the Infinity Stone, which means that we have 5 of the 6. We have Tesseract from Captain America and the Avengers, Loki's Scepter is one, the Ether from Thor, and whatever they were calling the thing in Guardians of the Galaxy. I think they were just calling it the Power Gem. Maybe? I don't know. And then this is probably the Time Gem, obviously, because it controls time. I only do this because he makes a hand motion. It's amazing that they just mention it, and then Doctor Strange's like, what's up? And Wong is like, don't worry about it. You don't need to understand. You have so much to learn. I love that they're bringing in the Infinity Gems, and one by one showing how powerful they are individually, because it's going to really build up for how amazing they are in the end. Like, when they're all together on the gauntlet, it's going to be like, oh, well, we've seen how amazing these things can individually be. This is terrifying now. Oh, I'm really looking forward to that. And Doctor Strange beating Dormammu is, I don't want to say too much there, but it is completely brilliant, and it's great because he learns that he doesn't have to win, but he doesn't have to lose either, and he's basically able to outsmart, and it's really one of the best moments of the movie that really sets it apart from other origin movies. Like, it has a really strong finale, which you don't see often. Like Iron Man 1, the first 2/3 of the movie are brilliant because it's just Iron Man becoming Iron Man. Then at the end, it's like, oh, it's a fist fight. Iron Man 2, Iron Man doing Iron Man things, then it's a fist fight. Iron Man 3, boo, then it's a fist fight. And those Iron Man movies just don't have good endings. God. But a lot of the Avengers-based movies, it's just building up, and then just ends with, oh, they're fighting. Doctor Strange, it doesn't end with that. It ends with him being smart, which is kind of what you have to do with those magic movies. And they're able to do it using laws that we already got taught. It makes sense in universe. They didn't just pull it out out of their ass, and I appreciated that. Now we get into the part that I really don't want to talk about because it's really controversial, and my views on it are, I don't know, people, no matter what, people are going to have issues with your views on it. Frankly, I say see this movie regardless of whether this casting pisses you off or not. Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One. Now, the Ancient One is Asian descent in the comics, and Tilda Swinton is not. She does do an amazing role, regardless of what you think of her. She is an amazing role in this piece. But her casting was really a lose-lose situation for Marvel. On one hand, if you don't cast her the way she should be portrayed in the comics, you have less roles for Asian people. It's changing a character from the comics, loses adaptation points. It's a slight on a whole group of people. On the other hand, the Ancient One is a really stereotypical role. I mean, the whole story is like stereotypical. White guy needs, something, goes on a spirit quest off to Asia or whatever and finds a higher purpose. That story's been done so many times that if you have it like, finds an old master and learns from him, and the master is hard but wise, and he doesn't believe in the teachings and is able to learn that the master was right all along, and you find out it's this old Asian bald dude, it's a stereotype. The whole role is offensive in a way. The same way that they didn't want to make Mandarin how Mandarin should be. It's a weird situation because if you do the Ancient One that way the Ancient One's supposed to be done, it would be offensive in its own way. Plus, this is a movie that if you look at the characters, they don't have a strong female character in the lead lineup. Rachel McAdams is in it, but she's only in it for like 10 minutes. So it'd be a bunch of dudes doing a bunch of dude things. So I strongly suggest having the Ancient One be female. I'm not sure if the Ancient One's female or not. I'm pretty sure the Ancient One's male in the comic. Like I said, Doctor Strange, not my strong suit. So making it female is important. Asian, it's a weird situation. It could backfire if they did that, but it backfired because they didn't do it. I think she did an amazing role, and if you look at the cast, I mean, they changed Mordo also. I mean, you have a very varied cast, and really, if you look at the movie, there's only like 6 characters in it, period. It's a very small knit group. I think Tilda Swinton did very good, and I think that Marvel was in a no-win situation, and I think Marvel's trying. I do understand that representation is important, and it's such a tough issue on this, but really it's up to the individual to decide. Most of the time when a movie comes out, I prefer the character to be as accurate to the comic portrayal as possible, but if the actor is good and there's a good reason for the actor to be in there, or if the actor brings something new to the table, I'm all for casting whoever. I prefer characters to be as exact to their comic counterpart as possible. As long as the movie is great and the character role is portrayed accurately to the comic and all of the themes and everything are all there, I don't give a shit. And if anyone's against the movie because of that, give the movie a chance. There's still a lot to offer. And he has a cape that has a mind of its own. It's very reminiscent of the magic carpet from Aladdin, and I love that cape. So watch it for the cape, because the cape is like the best character in the movie, period. And yeah, go see the movie. That's all I got. Sorry we got a little serious in the end there. God damn. That was a movie. Thank you for tuning in to Zwia Reviews on Geekade. Please check out our website, geekade.com. Check out our YouTube videos. Check out our Twitter. Follow us on Facebook. All that are good stuff. Keep an eye out for my videos. Now that I kind of have my social life going back to normal, I'll be able to make videos again on a more regular basis, and I have some really good stuff coming. Keep an eye out for our stuff. Keep watching. And see you guys next time. Night. Bye. Farewell. Go see Doctor Strange. I think I did really good today.